Take a picture. Take a picture. I'm gonna mute. Are you ready?
Ugly, I love it.
Oh, that's speaker. It has to come out in person. I don't know. I like Everyone like that. He's so cheap.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see you today. Am I loud? I feel loud. That's okay. I'm loud and proud. All right. So today we have a speaker for our Black History Assembly today. And so I just want to go over some etiquette as we are getting started today. So first off, when we are in assemblies, please don't forget to silence your cell phone and put your cell phone away. Only the speaker listening intently, giving them eye contact, and respecting what they have to say is of utmost importance. And I know that we have some magnificent high school students that will be able to do that. So if you will please right now take the time to put your cell phone in your bag. Go ahead and put it away so that will not be a distraction for you. The other thing is, please try to avoid talking until there is a question or answer session. And then you'll be able to ask questions and talk at that time, okay? So we're gonna start off with myself and Miss Kara Downing. She's going to sing the Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. There's only one mic. Right. Can you please stand? Stand for the national anthem. Stand. The flag is right up here, so. All right, here we go. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you. One more round of applause for Miss Dara. All right. Now the main speaker of the hour. I'm going to have Mr. Kevin Hill. He's going to come out and introduce our speaker today. Round of applause for Mr. Hill.
Good afternoon. So it is my honor to introduce our guest speaker today. today. Dr. Milton Katz is a senior professor of history at the Kansas City Art Institute. He's been featured on ESPN in a number of documentaries. He's a recognized expert coach, John McClendon, who was the first African American coach in professional sports, and he's widely credited with inventing fast break basketball. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, he was born just up the road in Hiawatha, Kansas. Dr. Katz is the author of an award-winning book, Through, John B. McClendon, Basketball Legend and Civil Rights Pioneer. So as the celebration of Black History Month comes to an end, we're reminded that one of the reasons for having Black History Month is to recognize those individuals who have contributed a lot to our society, but more the color of their skin. And Coach McClendon is one of those individuals. So let's give a nice Atchison High welcome to Dr. Milton Katz.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've never given a presentation in a gym before, but you should know that I once played college basketball. I don't look that part, to say the least, and I played on perhaps the worst college team ever assembled. We won 4 games that year, lost 19, but anyway, that was my time in the gymnasium. Some of you, I want to thank Kevin for inviting me here, as well as the administration of this school. So let me just give a brief introduction, and then we're going to show a 9-minute video. Sorry, the screen is so small, but your eyes are much better than mine, so hopefully you can see it. And then I'm going to go through a slide presentation. So let's just understand, as I'm sure all of you do, that throughout history, that sports has been a powerful force for positive social change. And to make that point, how many of you know the story of Jackie Robinson? Okay, so I don't see every hand up, but yes, so a lot of. So Jackie Robinson, as you know, integrated Major League Baseball. When was that? What year was that? Anybody know? An educated guess, perhaps? 42, and I'm sorry, what did someone say here? Up to 1947, so after World War II, 2 years after the war. But anyway, Jackie Robinson excelled on the baseball diamond, right? He was some of you know this, he was a terrific player. He changed the speed, really, of Major League Baseball. But Jackie Robinson also did a number of other things. So you know the story, you know that Jackie Robinson was a civil rights activist, not just a tremendous baseball player. And John McClendon wasn't a player, he was a coach. And he was a legendary coach, and eventually a Hall of Fame coach. But he also changed the nature of sport in the United States and civil rights in our country. So he did a lot more. He broke through many barriers. So anyway, we're going to start with an important video. Hopefully you can see it pretty well. If you can't see it, at least listen to the words. And it was on Inside the NBA. Some of you probably watch the NBA, at least some of the time. And you know that there's one for a long time called Inside the NBA. And it's Kenny the Jet. Let's Kenny the Jet's name for a second. What is it? Yeah, exactly. And Ernie Johnson. And anyway, those two people have been on this program for a while. And in 1999, during appropriately Black History Month, they did a special on John McClendon when he was very little known at the time. So luckily we now have that on YouTube. So we're going to play that, just listen to the words, look at the images if you can, and then we're going to stop that, and then I'm going to give a PowerPoint presentation and show some slides. It'll be really quick, so they'll only be up here half a minute each or so, but I want to fill in the gaps, and then we'll have perhaps you'll have some questions afterwards. Okay, so we're ready.
Bluetooth speakers are on.
example when he hung the beach basket, but he's made his mark certainly. Certainly, Dr. Naismith did also, and with Black History Month closing out now, a great story here on John McClendon, or like folks may not know. I know that's a great time to spend with it.
Yeah, great time you did. It's not many times that you're just in the presence of someone that you're in awe of, from their life experiences, from what they've accomplished, not only for themselves, but for society. And when you're around John McClendon, that's how you feel.
My 6th grade class went to see the new Northeast Junior High. There was a gym, and I had never seen an indoor gym. That fascinated me in itself, something to play indoors. But there was a man in the middle of the floor who was shooting basketball. I stopped and watched him make those shots over and over again. He missed a few, but it looked like he made them all. And I couldn't do it. I ran on to the physical trainer and coach basketball. She told me, you're not going to be a doctor, and your brother's going to be a lawyer, and your sister is going to be teachers. And they were. I was a rebel.
He is 83 years old, just 2 decades younger than the game he loves. A pioneer African-American sports movement. John McClendon, known by all of his students as Coach Mac, is the last living link to the founder of the game, Dr. James Naismith.
Dr. Naismith, he knew about my wishes, and he advised me or told me that you're on the right track. Let me know that anytime you have a good cause, there are more people for you than against you.
In 1891, Dr. James Naismith tacked a peach basket to the balcony of a gym in Springfield, Massachusetts, and taught the soccer ball player. Naismith later moved to Kansas, where his first student was the legendary coach Phog Allen. 24 years later, John McClendon was born in Hiawatha, Kansas, just 40 miles from Dr. Naismith's front door.
My dad said, I found out where the inventor is. It'd be better if you go where the inventor is than where the game was invented. Then you can be taught by the inventor. And it was his idea for me to go to the University of Kansas. We're going to have some rough times up there, but don't worry. And if you have a problem, I'll be up there my part of the
As the first black physical education student at Kansas, John McClendon soon found truth in his father's words.
Everybody knows the story. I jumped in the pool and they empty. I went to the half pool. When I got out, the next day he jumped in and I told him I had a big water girl in Kansas, the biggest one, if they kept us up. They had a rule in Kansas. This wasn't just Kansas, where she was blacks were not supposed to teach white kids at all. I didn't mind the reverse. Dr. Naismith said, well, here's how we beat that. We'll get you a job at the high school being an assistant coach.
For Coach Mack, the assistant coaching position at Lawrence Memorial High School will mark the beginning of a career that spanned 5 decades. In 1940, McClendon was named head coach at North Carolina College for Negroes. It was there he developed the fast break, which he believed was the future of basketball.
I was playing with him. He had just come out with a book called Fast Break Basketball, and that if we could outrun the other team, then chances are we're going to beat them. He sort of changed the game from an up and down game to a running type game. He believed that if he conditioned you and ran you, that you have the basic skills.
In 1944, at a time in America when blacks and whites had separate restrooms, drinking fountains, and unequal schools, Coach Mack once again tested the limits, challenging all white teams to a game of basketball.
In 1944, I said, we ought to have integrated competition in the state of North Carolina. Right over there, across town, there's the University of North Carolina, 12 miles away, there's North Carolina State. I did get a reply from Coach at Duke saying that I could come to the game out there, but if I came, I'd have to sit on the end of the bench where a Williams coach.
Coach Mack and one of his players, George Parks, pressed on, doing the unthinkable, organizing his Army and the Navy students of Duke Medical University.
We played in secret. We had an official game, official timetable, everything. No spectators, they said. And the only spectators were those that had heard about the game from the grapevine. They stood on boxes and barrels and everything, ladders outside the gym looking in to see the game. They had never seen fast break basketball. we put out all the stops on him, and double score, 88-44.
In 1957, Coach Mack became the first African-American coach to win a national championship at Tennessee A&I. It was a time when black schools weren't allowed in the NCAA tournament.
Over the Southeast Oklahoma State team integrated basketball championship tonight is Tennessee State College of Nashville, coached by J.D. McLendon.
Coach Mack's A&I team dominated the NAIA, winning 3 consecutive national titles in the late 50s.
One of the best teams I ever saw was in the Industrial League. Of course, that's Howard College. That's the team we got together. Sir Robinson, Jerry West, Terry Fisher, Bellamy. We beat them over in Canton, Ohio, August 6, 1960, over 9,000 people. As they put it on page 4 in the playbill about this big. And they said they didn't want the team embarrassed. And they didn't want the public to lose confidence in it.
That year, he became the first black to coach a pro team, the Cleveland Pipers of the ABF. But his tenure proved short. At halftime of a game, the Pipers' new owner came to the locker room and told McLendon he had just traded one of his Pipers to the opposing team. The player was to suit up for the opposition the second half. The owner, George Steinbrenner.
The board is talking about Mr. Steinbrenner. That's who we're about to talk about. Because at the time he took over the Pipers, he changed them from an industrial league team to a professional team. And by that move, I became the first black professional coach.
In Cleveland State University, where he was appointed the nation's first black head coach at a white institution. Today, he still teaches a class on sports and minorities.
You're student of population, which also fall down.
Yeah.
Which Dean Smith played for, who I played for.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, you can say it to every NBA player.
I have some grandson players, I call them, in the NBA now. For instance, Bill Lassiter played for me, and he coached morning. Dave Smith played. He was in my classes in basketball. And he coached the Wilkins brothers. Horace Howard played for me. He coached Terry Cummings. It does good to see them playing as well as they play. I feel like, it's second-hand math. There was something to do there developed.
In 1978, John McLendon followed his teacher into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Coach Mack is the root from which great players have gone. Thanks largely in part to the two who touched him before he touched any of us.
My dad came up, he patted me on the back and gave me a little said, I'm proud of you, son. My mother, little short lady, she was my second mother. She came up and said, I want to ask you something. And this is in the middle of all this celebration. I have my doubts about anybody that their whole life they decided I want 5 people to do with a ball. I still have my doubts. I don't know where she's the same she would have.
What a wonderful.
In all agreement, we sit there and talk to him.
No question. I mean, he's a man he was the first of so many things, not only in terms of being the first black coach, he was the first one to really play fast break basketball. And every single player, I don't care what level you're on, you were connected to that man some kind of way.
He would speed up the game with fast breaks and down the 4 quarters. A great job to Gayla Jones who produced that piece for us. John McLendon. Time well spent. When Inside the NBA continues, what's up with the Lakers, you ask? Well, Dennis Rodman is in uniform and is playing. And this is his first rebound as a member of the Lakers. More on the Worms' Hollywood career. What do we think about it?
Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. What did they say? Anybody remember the last words? He's connected to every NBA player. Do any of you play for this high school basketball? Okay, do you ever do the fast break? Okay, hopefully you do it well. Well, it's John McClendon that originated, invented that. And we have to realize, which I know is hard for all of us, but at that time, when he started coaching in the 1940s and 1950s, most of the games the score was in the 50s, maybe up to 60. But John McClendon started fast break, and they were scoring at one point less than 100 points per game. So let me go over the slides a little bit, and then we'll see if there's any questions or comments. All right, so we're going to start in Hiawatha, Kansas. You'll probably all know where that is. It's about 39 miles from here. So that's where he was born in 1915. His mother was a full-blooded Delaware Indian. Her family actually moved to Hiawatha in the 1880s, so a very long time ago, of course. She died of an influenza epidemic in 1917, so he mentions his second mother. So again, he's born in 15, he was with her a very, very short time. His father is John B. McClendon Sr., so the same name, Sr., of course. And his family moves to Kansas around 1913 or so. They moved to Hiawatha. He meets Effie, the woman I spoke about a moment ago. They moved to Kansas City, Kansas. So this is one of the few photographs, unfortunately, that we have of the McClendons, and you can see, I apologize for standing in front of you. Not sure where I can stand elsewhere, but anyway, so you can see it. You can see his mother, you can see his grandmother, you can see John as a baby, and his brother Arthur. This is about 1917. In the video, it shows that the first time he sees a gymnasium, which was in Northeast Junior High School in Kansas City, Kansas, he walks into this gym, he sees the PE shooting baskets, he falls in love with the game, and from that point on, again, he's probably 13 years old, 13 or 14, he's in love with the game of basketball, and says that he wants to be a coach one day, which obviously he became. He graduates from Sumner High School in Kansas City, Kansas. He goes out for all 3 years and he's there. He doesn't make it, he's cut each time, but he learns the game. He sits and watches practices all the time, learns the game well, and then graduates from Sumner in 1932 during the height of the Great Depression, and decides to enroll, as his father tells him, the James Naismith Center of Basketball is at the University of Kansas, so he enrolls at KU. Okay, this is Dr. Naismith. You've probably seen, some of you have seen, perhaps his image before. So he's the one who invents the game in 1891. John McClendon comes into his office as a first year at the University of Kansas, 1933. Dr. Naismith is 72 years old. So we have a 72-year-old man, a young African-American student coming in there, one of the few African-Americans at KU at that time. There were only 60 black students out of about 4,000. And he comes into his office and he says, "You're going to be my advisor." And Naismith says, "Who told you that?" And John McClendon says, "My father." And Naismith luckily says, "Fathers are always right." And he takes John McClendon under his wing. He becomes his mentor, advisor, and very close friend. And anybody graduating this spring? Any seniors in the group? Yes, okay, good for you. Any of you going to KU by chance? Okay, so a few of you, right? So if you're at the University of Kansas and you care anything about basketball and social justice, I suggest that you go into the DeBruce Center with one Fieldhouse. They're actually connected. And what you see in the DeBruce Center, the original rules of basketball, written by Naismith in 1891. Someone actually paid $4 million to get the original rules. They built a center at KU to house those. Across from the original rules is a picture of John McClendon, and McClendon says in that everything I owe in basketball and in life goes back to Dr. Naismith. This is some of the players in the basketball team in the 1930s. As you can tell, they're all white. An integrated team, they didn't allow black players. But Clinton actually, he's not a great basketball player himself, but he loves the game. He goes out. He tries out for the team every year he's at KU. They never give him a chance because literally the color of his skin. It wouldn't matter how good a player he was. He wouldn't be able to play. But he did have to sit during practices and watch the team and learned a lot about the game from those days. You heard the story in the video about the swimming pool. So John was an excellent swimmer. He was a lifeguard, as you can tell, in Kansas City, Kansas. But he was not able to swim in the pool at Robinson Gym at KU because of the color of his skin. Well, McClendon didn't take no for an answer. He's just a young man, a little bit older than all of you. He jumps in the pool one day. They tell him to get out of the pool. He gets out, he's forced to get out of the pool, and they drain the pool. He comes back the next day, does the same thing. A little fun, a little crazy to all of you. He tells them if they're going to drain the pool every day, they're going to have a heck of a water bill. Well, guess what? They decided that they would let him and the other black students swim in the pool, and he integrated literally the swimming pool at the University of Kansas. He's also the coach of a high school team. He's only 21 years old. He's still a college student. But in Lawrence Memorial High School had a black team and they had a white team. It was an integrated school. So he was the assistant coach of the black team. The coach left. He had some medical. He resigned, and John McClendon became head coach of a high school team at the age of 21. His team, the Lawrence Memorial Promoters, they won the Missouri and Kansas Black Championship at that time. This is his graduation picture in 1936 at the University of Kansas with, again, a major in physical education. And Dr. Naismith gets him a scholarship to go to the University of Iowa, where he gets his master's degree in 1 year. In 1937, so upon getting his master's degree, his first coaching job, full-time coaching job, is back in North Carolina, where his dad's family came from a long, long time ago. But he goes into the South at what was called North Carolina College for Negroes. It's in Durham, North Carolina. He's the assistant coach in basketball, football, and track. This is a photo from 1941, and I like this photo because what does it say on the guy's shirt, on the player's shirt? It says state, if you can read it. And the reason it says state is they couldn't afford their own uniforms at this small college in Durham. Uniforms from North Carolina State University. So literally the first year, they could not even afford uniforms for their players. Again, this is from his first team. You notice that there's a very tall man in there. And the guy in the middle is 7 feet tall. Probably you don't think that that's extraordinary today. Again, it's not. But in high school, in college back then, for a 7-footer to be on the court was pretty extraordinary. And for especially the basketball players in the group, look at that wingspan that this man had. So 7 foot tall, the rest of them were smaller players. They were called the Mighty Knights. And this team won the first Negro National Championship, as it was called. They played over a weekend, so just 2 days, they had to play 6 games. Think about that. 6 games over a 2-day stretch. They won all of them, and they won the national championship in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, this man, his name is Rocky Robertson. And guess where he's from? Atchison, Kansas. So literally from there. That's right, let's hear it for Atchison. All right, good to you. Okay, this man scored 58 points in 1 game. And I told you a little while ago that the average score for a team was in the 50s. This man himself scores 58 points in one game. The North Carolina team wins, by the way. They score 150. So he gets 58 out of 150, a national scoring record. And even though he's playing for a small black college team, it's on the national radio at that time. Again, his name is Rocky Roberts. But some of you basketball players probably score the same, right? So 58 is what you're used to. This is the 1944 team, the team that plays in the secret game. Again, it was secret because this was illegal. It's an act of civil disobedience for black players to play against white players, to be on the same court. And that's why it's secret. And believe it or not, it stayed secret for about 50 years. Finally, there is an article in 1996 that McClendon actually opens up and tells people about this game. And now it's become very famous that they played the secret game against Duke Medical Center. The North Carolina Eagles won 88-44, as you heard in the video. And this is his 19 called the Eagle, obviously. They won what was called the Colored Intercollegiate Tournament. They won it 5 straight years. They started in 46 and won it again 5 consecutive years. Right. He also, and this is really important, a lot of people don't know this, that he was the primary person to integrate the National Basketball Association. So in 1950, he brings up 2 players to a workout with the Washington Capitals professional team in the NBA. That one of his players signs the first NBA contract. The other player, which is the one that you can see here, his name is Earl Lloyd, and he's the first black player to take the court in NBA game. It's in 1950. McClendon applies to the NCAA. They talked about it, if you recall, that he wants his college teams, especially the Negro National Champions, which his team is for 5 consecutive years, to be able to play in the NCAA tournament, the same tournament they have every March, coming up obviously in a couple of days. And he's denied entry. They're not going to allow the black teams to play. In this letter, which I know you can't read, but it's really important, the letter says your teams do not measure up. They're not of the same caliber as the white teams. Well, how did they know that? The black teams could never play the white teams. It was not allowed. It was illegal. So they did a secret game, but they couldn't do it openly. So his teams were denied for supposedly they didn't have the same caliber of play. Well, McClendon goes to the small college tournament. It's called the NAIA. It's played in Kansas City downtown every year. And so in 1953, Tennessee A&M, where he's now coaching, is allowed to play in the tournament for the first time. He's invited up to play to Kansas City, but he says he won't come up here unless his team can stay at the same hotels, eat at the same restaurants as the white teams. He's going to try one individual, one college coach, one very modest, unassuming, dignified man is going to try to outdo the laws of Kansas City, Missouri. And guess what? It works. They allow his team to come up to Kansas City and stay in the same hotel as white teams. In it's at the Hotel Kansas City in 1954, where his team is proudly standing outside the front door. In 1957, you heard that as well, his team wins their first national championship in Kansas City, of course, with the NAIA. And they were an unseeded team. Most people didn't feel that they would win any games. Well, they won every one and won the championship. may be skeptical, but this is an article from the Kansas City paper saying that they won the game. And it says it's surprising that they won, but they actually won masterfully. We have to realize in the fast break, and this may not mean much to all of you, but there was no shot clock at that time. That they had to take their first shot within 8 seconds. 8 seconds from the back of the court to the front of the court. They had to take at least their first shot within 8 seconds. The other thing is that these athletes that played for him were in incredible physical condition. He had them run 3 miles up a hill and down a hill before practice. Some of you are probably playing on the basketball team here. Do you run 3 miles every day before practice? Yes? Okay, maybe. Would you like to run 3 miles every day before practice? Probably not. At least I can certainly. They had to run 3 miles before a grueling practice. They were in superb physical condition. The other thing he didn't believe is in substitution. So most of his teams, the starting 5 would play the entire game. So think about that as well. But anyway, so they won that first championship, their banner, again, to have the proof of that event. And the Kansas City black community was very proud of this team. They came out and watched them in droves. And in the black paper, it's called the Kansas City Call. You see an article saying historic win for team. And then the editor, John Johnson, writes an editorial in which he says John McClendon is not just a great black coach, he's a great coach, period. This is his second championship team. He wins as coach in basketball history to win 3 consecutive championships. And this is his most valuable player. His name is Dick Barnett. And Dick Barnett, I don't know if any of you know NBA history, but Dick Barnett ends up playing in the NBA. He plays for the Los Angeles Lakers and the New York Knicks. And he himself is enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame in 2024. And Dick Barnett has a great description of his coach, the coach that he beloved. And he says that John McClendon had an iron fist in a velvet glove. Fist in a velvet glove. They win again in 1959. It's their 3rd national championship, as you can see. This was a team, and so 3 consecutive years. They had about 12 players or so on each of those teams, and some other players. Well, I want to give you a statistic, which again, maybe you can think about the importance of that. 5 of his players, 5 players from this small African-American college in Durham, North Carolina. 5 of those players played the NBA. The NBA only had 8 teams then. Speaking of the 1950s, early 60s. Only 8 teams, as opposed to 30 today. That's 96 players. 5 of those 96 players came from this little-known school. Those players under Coach McClendon. That's how incredible he was, and his players were. 3 of his national championship trophies. Here he wins he gets inducted in the NAI Hall of Fame. And he leaves college coaching, and as you heard in the video, he becomes a coach beyond the college level in the National Industrial Basketball League. This is a very high-powered league, and he's coaching the Cleveland Pirates. It's an integrated team. He's the first. He breaks through many barriers. This is one of the barriers. They've never had a black coach of an integrated team. So it's controversial that he coaches them to the IPL championship and the AAU championship. And that's his team. You can tell just by looking at the picture, it's integrated in St. Leaves. It's about the same number of black players as the number of white players. talked about in the video, one of his proudest moments was meeting the United States Olympic basketball team. This is an amateur team. They were not professional players back then. This was the best amateur team we ever had in the Olympics. And before they go over to Rome to play against other nations, they have exhibition games. So they play with Clemens' team, they think they're going to beat them handily. In fact, they lose 101 to 96 in overtime. So it's one of the proudest moments that McClendon has. And what's good is what's interesting is you can actually go to the Spencer Research Library at the university and you can see the scorecard from this game. This game that literally made history in 1960. So here's the scorecard. And then he's invited by the U.S. State Department, because he's so successful, to take and integrate the USSR to the Soviet Union and play 8 games against them. So think about that, a black coach, little known in the United States, picked by the U.S. State Department in the midst of the Cold War, to go over to the Soviet Union and play their national teams. This is a team that goes over there, and they win 8 games. They play 8 games, they win every one. And McClendon comes back, at least to some degree, a national hero. He's coaching the Cleveland Pipers, a professional team in the American Basketball League, which probably you've never heard of. This American Basketball League lasts only 2 years, but McClendon becomes the first black professional coach in any sport in 1961. The owner is five minutes ago. All right, so let's see. Steinbrenner is a pretty crazy guy. He starts meddling with the team, and McClendon resigns. I'm going to go quickly. So they revolt, and he resigns in protest against Steinbrenner. I think Kevin may have mentioned Fast Break Basketball. He writes the first book as a black coach of Fast Break Basketball, published in '65. Coaches at Kentucky State University for a few years, then goes to Cleveland State, and this is important because he becomes the first black coach of an integrated university. He wins his 500th game with a score of 24-22. He's coaching in the American Basketball League, the first black coach, one of his players. And then he becomes an Olympic coach in 1964 with the Olympic trial, and then coaches as an assistant to the 68 and the 72 Olympic Games. I'm going to go really quickly here. So for 5 years in 1970, he's nominated as an inductee in the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. He's denied use of the color of his skin. But finally, in '78, he gets a letter that he's now inducted, not as a coach, but as a contributor. Him getting the induction award. Who's the guy in the background? Anybody? Will Chamberlain, yes, thank you. Right? John was about 5'8". They're inducted at the same time. McClendon with his trophies. He's invited back to KU as an honorary citizen. John with his wife, Joanne. McClendon Court, he's honored in various schools. In 1995, he goes to El Monte, where James Naismith, his mentor, was born. He gets the Naismith International Trophy. Comes back to KU in 1998. He's honored there. He dies in 1999. And an article in the El Monte paper says he stood for everything as well. And then this quote, which I'm going to read to you. I know we're out of time, but it's really important. So the quote says, "We in the media probably took it for granted It says genuine humanitarians and pioneers fall out of trees. Although Will Chamberlain's death was blared out in the headlines, McClendon's was just as significant, if not more so, as it took from us the last true link to basketball's origins, but beyond that, a large part of its soul. If Will still was larger than life, McClendon celebrated life, enriching everyone he touched. Okay, and just 2 more slides. A sign outside of Iowa, Kansas, thanks to Kevin Hill, commemorating him and honoring him. A film that was made by a person in Atchison named Scott Unruh in 2015. So he's the one who produced it. It was made and directed by Kevin Wilmot at the University of Kansas. And then finally, my last slide is 45 years of waiting. John McClendon has now passed away, but he is finally inducted as a coach in the Hall of Fame. So the blind yes, right on. And so the moral of the story is, if you're determined enough, persistent enough, social justice might actually happen. And in this case, it ultimately did. Thank you all.
All right, if anybody has any questions? Any questions? Trenton has a question way up there. Hold on, Trenton, I'm coming up there. I'll be the talk show. Come here, Trenton. Come here.
What kind of effect did Fast Break did that made it so profound on basketball that it never changed back?
Good question. What was so profound about the fast break that it changed basketball?
Okay, it's a great question. Because John McClendon understood that it was the way to the future. And think of 2 things. One is basketball is pretty boring. If you can only score 34 or even 44 points, all they did is pass the. There's a great video how they used to play, and they just passed the basketball back and forth. The players loved it, so that's why they never left it, and the fans loved it. And that's what McClendon said. If you want to grow the sport, we need to change the nature and pace of it. They did, and those of you who know basketball, every team employs the fast break. Some more successful than others, but every team uses it.
If there are no more questions, I have Mr. Sean Britton is going to give us a couple of remarks, and then we will dismiss right after that.
All right, thank you for your attentiveness, and let's give it up for Mr. Cox. Let's give it up for Coach McClendon. On behalf of Baptist United, thank you again. Stay tuned for other speakers that we're going to bring into the community. It's all about appreciating the past and learning from it and being better. So thanks again. You are dismissed.